Hello students and welcome to our today's lecture, BJL3204, Radio Production, Department of Journalism, School of Social Sciences. My name is Mr. Michael Mwangangi. Our lecture's objectives today, we wanted to identify characteristics of radio, understand principles of writing for radio, prepare news script for radio, and organize a newscast for radio. So on to our introduction. Working in radio entails an understanding of the nature of the medium you have chosen to work for. The medium of radio is different from a newspaper and magazine, and the writing for radio is slightly different from television. So it is important to understand the radio medium and be comfortable within the environment you have chosen. Understanding the system implies taking note of the challenges of the medium and taking full advantage of the medium to fulfill the expectations of the target audience. It is also, it also means taking cognizance of the shortcomings of the medium in your script so as to be able to create an unforgettable message that will help you achieve the desired goals of the program. So we are going to be able to understand all this as we move on with our different parts of our presentation. So let us first start by understanding what radio is. Webster Dictionary defines radio as the wireless transmission and reception of electric impulses or signals by means of electromagnetic waves. Now, there are different ways that we can be able to define what radio is. First, you realize that if we are to ask any of you, you'll say that radio is just that device that you are able to receive audio messages. Okay? But to correctly go ahead and define what radio is, you realize that you'll have to say that it is a device that is able to receive the audio programs, which in the process you realize that for us to be able to receive that within our gadget, there are different stages that this message has to undergo. So to start with, that person who is within the studio has to speak on the microphone, and the microphone changes the audio or the sound into electrical signal that is processed in a different equipment or within different equipment that is being used within that studio. Then from that signal has to be transmitted, and the transmitter there usually generates what we refer to it as the carrier wave, and the audio signal is usually attached to that carrier wave that is sent within the atmosphere, which is carried, that is within the atmosphere, and received by antenna of our radio, which now again goes ahead and transduces or changes that into audio that we can be able to listen to. So on the second definition, Cambridge Dictionary defines a radio as a piece of electronic equipment used for listening to radio broadcasts. So this is just like we are talking about now the device itself. At our homes, even in your pocket on your mobile phone, you can be able to receive radio. So that device that you are using, be it the radio set itself, it has the capability of being able to change these electronic signals into audio rather into an audio to sound so that we can be able to understand. Radio is the transmission of audio signals through the air. The electronic signal is changed into high-frequency radio waves that travel a distance and are received by an antenna. I believe we have captured that up there. The antenna changes them back to the electronic signal that can be changed to sound waves by the radio speaker. So just to clarify on that, we are saying that if at all we are to receive these audio signals, okay, so there must be first the signal within the station where we are having our continuity announcers or news anchors being picked by one of the devices, that is the microphone. Then this microphone goes ahead to change this signal into electrical signal. Now from that, we are saying that this electrical signal, which contains now the radio information that has been produced within the station, has to be now again sent through the air so that we can be able to receive that information on our radio set. So at the transmission point, we are saying that there is a wave, a radio wave that is generated that we are going to attach, or that we are going to place now the radio audio signal that is containing the message, so that now we can be able to transmit it. And the process that we are going to get it at our homes is that we are going to use the energies that are radiating within the atmosphere, and part of the electromagnetic spectrum that we are going to use is what we refer to it as radio waves. So these radio waves are the ones that are going to carry this signal, and when this carry a wave together with the radio signal that it is carrying, once it finds the radio antenna, the antenna usually separates the carrier wave, leaving it on the atmosphere, then picks the radio signal. So radio signal goes through to now the radio set, which is now able to transduce or to change that electrical radio signal into sounds that we can be able to listen from the radio speakers. Let's look at the characteristics of radio. So the following are some of the characteristics of radio as identified by McLeish, 2005. One is the simplicity of radio, and we are saying that simplicity of radio takes various forms. In the first instance, radio is easy to operate, and as such does not require heavy equipment that is needed as compared to all other media. Now, when we are looking at the issue of simplicity of radio, for one, you realize that even that person who has never gone to school can be able to operate that given equipment or that given device. In another instance, it affords those working in the station to be creative and express themselves freely, but taking cognizance of the acceptable on-air norms. So there are different programs that we usually receive through the radio, and we are saying that these different ways that we usually express our creativity as people who are working within this given medium. Okay, so what we are talking about here are the different formats or program formats that we usually produce for radio. You realize that there are those programs like the drama, the documentary, drama, documentary, the news programs, and others. So when we are producing that, we are saying that we are supposed to observe the recommended what? On-air language. Next. Its simplicity makes the production process less cumbersome as compared to the production process in television. So again, you'll find that when it comes to radio, what you need to have or the equipment that you need to have, so that now you can be able to produce these different radio programs is simply microphones, okay? And now that character or that person who is going to be giving the information, and probably the visual, or rather the audio mixer, whereby we are going to connect the different microphones if you are going to be having more than one source of audio. So with that, if you are to compare with that with other media, like for example television, in television you require a number of production crew to be in place so that you can be able to produce even that symbol program, or that fairly short program that you wish to produce. So you require, like for example, the camera operator, you require a bit of lighting, okay? You require all those microphones. So all these are going to be handled by different people, and on top of that you realize that you have now the talent. So the other characteristic is radio is inexpensive. So we are saying that it is also, that is, radio is also financially healthy. First, it is cheaper in terms of purchasing the receiver. Now look at the radio set. If you are to purchase, then even that person who is so poor can be able to afford to have that device, okay? So with, for example, something to do with 200, you can be able to afford a fairly small radio set. Compare that with television, you require a number of thousands of shillings for you to be able to get one. Secondly, it is financially healthy because it does not require a full complement of stuff that is needed for television. Now, when it comes to production of these radio programs, you do not need so many people for you to be able to produce. Like for example, when you are doing, or rather when you are gathering information for radio, what you require is just a recorder and just that person who is going to be gathering news, and that's all. So if you're the one who is going to gather that information that you're going to use for your radio, like a radio newscast, will just require one person who can be able to operate the recorder, and then that's all. Next, we are saying that it is not a literate medium, that unlike the print medium, which require ability to read and write, radio does not require a literate audience. All that it requires is a good ear and good listen ambit. Now, this is one of the it is one of the major advantages of radio, especially when it comes to developing world, that you realize that our developing world is characterized by majority of the people who are not that educated. So if at all we want to pass, like for example, some message, some health messages, some development messages, the best medium now that you find we can be able to use is radio. Why is it so? It can be able now to enable so many people to be able to understand, or to be able to acquire this message that you want to pass to them, okay? So that, together with the issue of it being inexpensive, you realize that it makes so many people to be able to afford it and to be able to receive messages through this kind of medium. Radio is supplemental medium, that with the radio you don't have just to sit there and listen. What we are saying here is that with the radio you can be able to do other things as you still listen to that medium, okay? You can be probably do some cleaning as you listen to radio. You can be doing different tasks as you still listen to your medium or to that radio. Radio is an audio medium. Now, earlier when we were doing some introduction there, we said that there is some of the challenges that comes with our medium, and one of these challenges could be because radio is an audio medium alone. Okay, meaning that we only rely on the audio, on the sounds that we are receiving from that radio set. Okay, so this means that as a producer of programs for radio, you should be able now to try as much as possible to create the visual images at the back of the mind of the listener through the creative use of words that you are going to pick in probably coming up with your script and the like. So just to take you through that, the simplicity of radio implies that producers can design programs without planning for video. It is an audio-only medium, and according to ASEMA 2011, radio is a blind theater. Well, now we can look at that as an advantage as well as a disadvantage. So as an advantage, you realize that with radio you can be able to create any kind of environment. You can take your listeners to any given place, okay? Because what you need to do is just to create those mental images at the different places that you want to transfer or that you want to take your listener to. So you achieve that through the different sound elements or audio elements, like for example the effects and picking that gifted narrator or the voicer of the different radio programs that you are going to have. Next, we are saying that our radio messages are transient in nature. And as you can see, the medium of radio has been described as a fast breaking medium that tells the story first before other medium. So as we have seen, when it comes to radio, you are able to fairly quickly be able to assemble the story together and at the same time be able to disseminate that information to your target audience. Okay, so with that you can be able to give that breaking news fairly fast. Now the other point that is connected to that is that it is a medium that cannot be able to wait for you. It is a medium whereby you cannot be able to go back and try to get the information that bypassed you. So for you to be able to get that information and make sure that you do not miss anything, then you must make sure that you understand at what time the program will be done and make sure that you are ready there with your radio, switched it on so that you can be able to get all that information. Otherwise, you realize that you will, once the information bypasses, you have missed that. So now let us look at the principles of writing for radio. And we are saying that broadcast script, particularly radio script, measure up to laid down parameters. And these are, when you're writing the script, you should be clear, you should be concise, complete, should be conversational, current, and should be correct. So let us look at each of those principles. The first one is clarity. And we are saying that a clear copy means the writer employs a simple, easy to understand manner to convey the message to the audience. So now, for you to be able to be clear, you know that you are supposed to use language that your target audience are able to understand. And this means that you are going to use those words that they normally use on their daily conversations. So in such a case, you must make sure that you go for the short words, okay, and avoid any vocabulary. Avoid any vocabulary that is not within their daily use. So just to go through that, the medium of radio is such that the listener cannot go back to what he or she has missed in any aspect of the program. The only way the listener can follow the story is for the writer to develop the story in a logical way. So clarity of thought implies that the script, one, should be clear to avoid misinterpretations. Okay? So you should avoid those words that have more than one meaning, especially when you are writing for radio. Two, should avoid putting too many thoughts or numbers into one sentence. So for people to be able to understand your message, just stick to one fact at a time. Next, the writer must choose words that everyone will understand. That is, the writer must use words that are within the vocabulary of the listener. And I believe I've talked about that when you are writing, go for those words that are in daily use by your listeners. Okay? So if they are technical terms, it is important for you to avoid them if you're not broadcasting for the audience who particularly uses those technical terms. Now, given the fact that radio is meant for everyone, and in most cases you're targeting everyone in the society, then we are saying that because your main objective is to communicate, and communication means that the listener or your target audience will be able to understand that message just like the way you intended him to understand, then there is no need for you to use language that they will be struggling to understand. And that's why we are saying that go for those words that everyone will be able to understand. And these words are those ones that they usually use on their daily basis. Next, you use the active rather than the passive voice if you want to be clear. Now, we have an example there of what we mean by active voice. For example, MKU Innovative Researcher has won the prize. MKU Innovative Researcher has won the prize. So that's a statement or a sentence in active voice. What about if it is in passive? This is how it is going to sound. The prize has been won by MKU Innovative Researcher. So compare the length of the two sentences. You realize that the one that is in active voice is shorter compared to the passive one. So in such a case, you'll have to realize that when we are writing for radio, we are going, or rather we need to make sure that we use fewer words, because in radio you do not have so much space. In broadcast you do not have so much time. So you must make sure that any words that is not going to hand more value to the message that you want to communicate, you leave them out. And that's why we are emphasizing that you use the active rather than the passive voice. Next, avoid using slang or jargon. So slang is simply the street language. Okay. For example, what here in our country we refer to it as a sheng. You realize that not everyone that will be listening to you will be able to understand that kind of language. So the only way out to make sure that your information is clear and everyone is able to understand what you are saying is to make sure that you avoid that, as well as you avoid jargons. These are difficult words. Next, it is not, or rather, this is an explanation for that, that it is not every listener that are familiar with such slangs, which is why it is advisable to always translate military, technical, legal, and foreign terms into easy to understand language. The second principle is you be concise. Now, conciseness means that the writer has eliminated all unnecessary words that add nothing to the message. So you have to make sure that you are direct to the point. And for you to be able to achieve that, we are saying that, one, you get straight to the point. So sometimes you realize that at times you may find that the sources of information, or those people who are giving you the information that you want to inform people there, they are using so many words to describe something that can be described with a few words. So what we are saying is that aim to just using those words that will be able to describe the situation directly, or the situation at once, without using so many words. Use short but effective sentences. Okay, so you know, when it comes to broadcast, the words that you are going to write down, the script that you are going to prepare, should contain short sentences, because short sentences are easy to be announced, to be read out by the broadcast announcer or radio announcer. Next, state only relevant information. So you only provide what? That important information, and avoid repetition. So there's no need when it comes to radio to keep on repeating the same thing. So the only point where you can be able to do some repetition is, for example, when you are doing kind of discussion show in your radio station, whereby you realize that some of the listeners could have joined you a little bit late when the program was on. So you need to tell them what they are listening to, that they are listening to this particular station, and their host is this, and within the studio, within that particular program, you are discussing this and this with this kind of guests. Okay, so that is permitted. But now keeping on repeating other words, you'll not find that in radio. So the next principle is complete. And as you can see, completeness means the script has all the information the audience must know, regardless of the genre that the script is addressing. It must, like news story, include in it at least 4 of the 5 W's, and in some cases, like in drama, include the H. So despite the fact that we've said that when you are writing for radio, you must be brief, and also must not include so much information, you must make sure that that story that you are delivering to your audience is complete. And it will be complete if you can be able to answer the different questions, or you can provide all the information based on the 5 W's and an H. So as we are going to see later, you don't have to compress all that information within the introduction of your lead for the case of radio news. So you can start with one of the most important, and in this case, it is what, that is what happened, and where. So the 2 W's are the most important when you are starting your news story. But make sure that the entire story is complete. You've given all the information that the listener will feel that they are satisfied with what you've given them. The next principle is that you be conversational. Remember that when it comes to radio, we are going to be getting the information through listening. Okay, so the best way that you can be able to deliver this information is if you can be able to employ what we refer to it as the conversational style. So this means that okay, let us go through that. The principle of having a successful program and audience royalty is to write the way you talk. That is just as if you are carrying on a conversation with just one person and not the million listening at the other end. Now, for you to be able to achieve that, for example, you realize that when we are talking, when we are conversing, most of the time you realize that we use contractions, okay? For example, shouldn't, didn't, that way. So that is as well permitted or allowed when you are writing that script for radio. So, but something that you are supposed to note is that you're not just supposed to be that informal in the tone that you're going to use. You are supposed to be a little bit formal in the language that you are using. The other principle is being current. So currency in a copy means that the copy is timely and up to date. Currency in drama gives the suggestion of relevance and relatable to the people. Now, when it comes to radio, most of the time you are giving information that has just happened. And it is important for you when you are writing for radio to observe that. So how are you going to ensure that people will feel that this information is happening now or it has just happened? It is by following the following guidelines that are: one, you write in the present tense. Write in the present tense. Two, use active rather than passive voice, as we had seen up there. You keep time references close to the verb. You have an example that we are giving there, that today, for example, today the president announced his view on the new tax law. That one is easier to read aloud than a new view on the tax law was announced today by the president. So what we had said, when it comes to your writing, you go for active voice if you can. If it is possible, make sure that you go for active voice, simply because active voice ensures that you use a few words, and at the same time you realize that there is a pace that is employed when you're using that kind of style or that kind of voice. Next, you have to ensure that whatever that you are giving to the audience is correct. Okay? So this means that your information is factual, your information is accurate, and all that. So just have a look at this, that a correct presentation of facts and figures is the hallmark of good journalism as well as writing. In achieving this, one, have perfect grammar and spelling. Bad grammar and wrong spellings will make the writer appear incompetent. So you'll have to check for all those grammatical mistakes within your copy before it goes ahead to be announced. Two, punctuation is absolutely important to expressing the right meaning. So you realize that with the issue of punctuation marks, the commas especially, when you put it at the wrong place within your statement, then the meaning of that statement definitely will change. Next, double check. When do you have to double check? You check again and again your script to ensure that there is no any mistake. Next, make sure your facts and figures are accurate. You can round off where necessary. So in the case of numbers, you know, in a radio, because you are going to be announcing that, make sure that a number that is not easy to be able to be understood, you can be able to round it to a number that is going to be understood. Take, for example, you're talking about the payment to some of the workers, and you're saying that they are given something to do with 2,548 shillings. per month. So you realize that it will be hard for the listener to be able to get to understand that number. So you can simply say that these kind of workers are paid less than 2,600 shillings per month. So with that kind of information will be able to stick to the mind of the listener. So next, let us look at the news script. How do you go about to prepare a news script? We are saying that radio news copy begins with a slug line that indicates the reporter's last name, the date, the newscast time, a story identification, and the story length. Okay, so when you are preparing your report, because you'll be going to the field to cover different news items, so when you are presenting your report in form of a script, there must be something that will be able to tell us that this story is about this, that this story will be aired at this particular time. It will run for this length, or I mean for this duration of time, and it has been done by this particular journalist. Okay, so we will be able to see that on an example that we are going to see shortly. The script is written using the full length of the page, and a standard end mark is inserted after the last line. So when you're done with your story, there is a mark that you're supposed to put such that the announcer will be able to know that he or she has come to the end of that particular story, and you put that kind of a mark, or that number we are seeing there, with an hyphen on both sides. When actualities are recorded sounds of the news event, when they are used, the script includes the length of the actuality and an auto cue, that is out cue. The out cue is the last few words on the tape or DVD, so that the newscaster is prepared to begin reading again when the actuality comes to an end. Well, you realize that most of the news reports or these newscasts, they are comprised of different reports from different events, and for the listener to be able to believe, or for you to have that credibility on the stories that you are giving, you must give us what we are referring to it as the actuality. And I repeat, actuality is the voice or that sound that we can be able to get to hear from the location where the event was taking place. So if it is possible, you make sure that each of the story that you are going to do is accompanied by an actuality. So let us look at an example of a news script. So just like what we have said there, above there, you must be having what we were referring to it as a slug line. And you can be able to see here, the first thing that you can be able to see on top there is, that is on the left side of the script. You'll be able to see that we have the name of that particular event that you are going to cover, and in this case is a chemical explosion. You'll have as well to indicate the time and date when that news item is supposed to be broadcasted. The reason as to why you do that, you know that once you have prepared the scripts, maybe the newscaster can be able to come to the studio a little bit late and just pick the scripts and start announcing the news items. So to ensure that the announcer will not be mistaken and read some of the news clips or news reports that had already gone on air, maybe last week or maybe last night or previous day. That's why you're supposed to include the date and at the same time indicate the time that that news item is supposed to be broadcasted. So with that, when the announcer says that, we'll be certain that this news item is supposed to be announced at that particular moment. So again there, you indicated the person who has done the news coverage, and in our case is J. Peter. Now on the right side of the column, you indicate the duration of that news item, and in our case, it is taking 45 seconds. So once you have done that, now you can be able to include or to give your report. And we are saying that when you are writing your script, make sure now your report is able to run the entire page. You can be able to see that it is running from the left margin to the right margin. So after you've done that, sometimes you find that now you have an actuality. And as we had said, an actuality is now the voice or recording from the event, wherever it was taking place. And you want to insert that within your news report. So if you have to do that, there you'll have to indicate what kind of an insert is that, and within the start there will be those words that will be said or that will be played from that DVD or that tape. It is supposed to indicate the time that that actuality runs, and at the same time it is supposed to indicate the last few words that will be heard from that actuality. So the importance of you doing that is to ensure that the announcer will be alerted that that actuality is about to end, so that he can be prepared to give the last bit of, or rather to go ahead and continue announcing. So once we are done with the actuality, now the announcer can be able to finish the remaining part. Okay, as you can see there. Then once that item ends, you remember to put this kind of mark on your script that alerts the announcer that that news item has come to an end. So that's a sample script for a radio news, for a radio news item. Now let us look at something else, how we organize now the news script. So broadcast news copy is organized in a pyramid style, meaning the most important points of the story are given in a concise lead sentence, and then the remaining details of the story are given in a descending order of importance. Now, when you look at the way we do news for print media, for newspapers and magazine, we usually start in most cases with the most important. Okay, then we move to the second most important, moving all the way to the least important. But now when it comes to radio script, as we had said, you're supposed to present the information in a conversational style. So there's no way that you can be able to follow the inadvertent style that is followed when it comes to the case of newspapers. Why is it so? Because now there's no way that we usually talk like that. There's no way that we usually start with the most important information within our story. Then as you are narrating to your friends, you move from that most important to the second most important to the least. Okay, that does not happen. And we are saying that we'll have to replicate how we usually communicate in normal situations, so that when it comes to radio, so that our listeners can be able to understand everything that we are broadcasting to them. So in the newspapers, we are saying that the news story is told by giving them basic who, what, where, when, why, and how. Information in fairly short, simple sentences that are easy to read loud. So in the case of newspapers, we try to give all this information within the first sentence. But now when it comes to radio, we only pick one of these, and we'll have to ensure that it is the most important, so that now we can be able to feature that within our opening sentence or our introduction, and now make sure that we can be able now to give other information on the later part of now the story, starting with probably the least important, moving now to the most important. We are saying that in contrast to broadcast newscasters, newspaper reporters include as many facts, who, what, when, where, why, how, as possible in the first sentence. And I believe I explained that when it comes to the newspaper reports, you'll be able to find that the newspaper reporters will be able to include the 5 W's and an H within their lead sentence or within their introduction, which is contrary to what we do in the case of radio, okay, where we start with the most important, which in most cases it is what happened and where it happened. Then the other information we give it later following the pyramid style. So the other point there is telling you what happens in the case of newspapers, that the editor in newspaper can trim the copy from the bottom up to fit the space available without losing important information. Now, this style of writing, known as the inverted pyramid in newspapers, will not work in broadcast because it is awkward to read. No one really talks that way, and the listener would not, or rather, the listener won't get confused. So we are saying that you cannot be able to employ that style that is used in newspapers when you are reporting, or rather when you are writing a script for broadcast, more so radio. So when you are writing for broadcast news and more so radio, remember to keep it short and simple. That is what we refer to it as the KISS principle. So let us see what you're supposed to do when you are organizing the radio newscast. You realize that there are different stories that a news broadcaster or that journalist who is going to the field to cover. Some of those stories that this broadcasting journalist covers will be part of the newscast for that particular day. So once we receive these different stories, we'll have to select them based on a criteria that has been established in the media house, and in most cases it's based on the value of news and the target audience that that particular media house targets. Okay, so news values are like issues to do with proximity, prominence, timely, and the like. So we look at that, and then we as well check whether that story will be of much value to the target audience in terms of interest, in terms of relevance, and the like. Next, the final stories for the newscast are selected by the news director based on news value and the target audience. Once the stories are selected, their order is determined. So now, once these stories have been selected, we've said that when you're selecting those stories, you consider the value of news and 2, your target audience. So once you have selected those stories, again, you'll have to ask yourself, how are you going to organize these news items? Okay. So depending on your media house, you realize that some of the media houses goes ahead and organizes those news. Probably if the area of coverage, probably it's national, then they are going to identify those stories that are touching on people locally. They first start with those stories, then they can go and now broadcast the other international newsletter. Okay, so that's what we are covering with this. Some stations may first or rather, if all the news is being produced locally, local news will usually come first, unless there is a national or international story of major significance. Some stations may first air a network newscast that covers the national and international news, and then follow that with a complete local report. So when you're organizing your stories for radio, then first go and consult what we refer to it as the standards that have been set in your media house. Okay, and within your media house, you realize that there is a policy on how you're supposed to do the news, to organize the news items. It can be by you starting with the local news, and in most cases this depends on the region that your station covers. Next, we are saying that each station determines the overall structure. Each station determines the overall structure its newscast will follow. Okay. Usually, traffic and weather are important aspects of the newscast, especially during the drive time. Okay. So this is the time that people are going to work as well as driving from work. Okay. So around 7 to 8 and around from 2 to maybe 5, 6 there, we refer to that time as drive time. So people want to be given some information pertaining traffic, okay, so that they can be able to know which roads they can be able to use. They need to be informed about the issue of weather, for example, when they are leaving from their house, so that they can know how they can be able to dress and alike. Next is sports. Sports, stock market reports, and health reports have also become important factors in news content, but inclusion depends on the station's target audience. Okay, so apart from apart from what we refer to it as anti-news, you realize that there are those other reports that are touching on sports and issues to do with the business, or what we are referring to it as stock market, health reports. You know, you wish to be able to give this information to your target audience, but again, we are saying that it will depend on the position of your station in regards to what they are supposed to, or rather, to what the station is supposed to be broadcasting to their target audience. Next, the length of individual news stories vary from about 10 seconds to 2 minutes. The shorter stories are usually straight reading and are preferred for radio. Now, you realize that when it comes to radio, you do not have all the time, like in the case of the newspapers and television. Reason being that people's concentration will not last that long. So the much that they can be able to concentrate is, for example, for 10 minutes. Okay, so the newscast program should not go beyond 10 minutes. Okay, but nowadays we usually even go for a shorter duration of an average of 5 minutes. So what does that tell you? That the radio news items should be short. Okay, and that's why we are saying that most of them should be able to average at around let's say something to do with 30 seconds, so that you can be able to do a number of news items. And that point that I've just said is being explained there, that in broadcast journalism, time is important. If stories are 30 seconds each, the number of stories that would be covered in a 5-minute radio newscast is only 10. So it wouldn't be important if you can be able to have some of the stories that are shorter than even those 30 seconds. So again, you'll have to take note that if commercials have to be included within that newscast, then the number of stories again will have to be reduced. So since radio is an auditory medium, radio news should employ as many actualities as possible. And we mentioned that earlier, that for us to be credible, for your stories to be believed by your listener, you must bring those reports or those audio clips from the field and insert them within your newscast. Okay, we have an example down there. For example, during a radio news story about reorganization of Jubilee Party, an actuality might consist of comments by a Jubilee Party representative. So we are assuming that you have gone ahead to talk to this representative when there was that reorganization of the party. So for us to believe in whatever that you are telling us, you must include that actuality that features that Jubilee Party representative talking to you as the radio reporter there. So again, we are saying that another way to get sound other than the Angus voice into a newscast is to have the radio reporter call into the station and record a voicer. This is a news report from the scene of the event. Now, when we are reporting, or when we have sent our broadcast reporters, our radio news reporters in the field, at times, apart from just getting the actuality from the representative from wherever they have gone to cover that news event, they would as well want to inform us that they are there and they are reporting for this particular station. So when we include that, that's what we are referring to it as a voicer. The audio of our reporter from the field, it is the one that we are referring to it as the voicer. So when we combine the voicer and the actuality, we get what we refer to it as the wrap. You wrap up, combine the voice, or rather the actuality, that is the sound from, or the audio from the location where the event was taking place, and then you combine that with the sound of the reporter who is covering that particular event. So when you combine that, you are saying that we refer to that as the wrap. Next, at the end of the actuality, the news person needs to let the people back to the station know that the story is finished. And this is usually done by giving a tagline that closes the story, and a standard closing line, usually something like, I have an example there. For example, if we are having our reporter that we refer, our reporter who goes by the name Lucy Mwende, we can have something like this. For MKU Radio, this is Lucy Mwende reporting from Parliament building. So with that, when the anchor hears that this person is coming to an end, or rather, this is just a way of alerting the news announcer that that report is coming to an end by having this person give us that kind of a line, okay, which we are referring to it as the last tagline. Next, the news anchor must be aware that when for MKU ... is add, it is the cue to get ready to announce again. So when that announcer, the one who is doing the news, when he is or she is listening to the reporter's report, which we are referring to it as the wrap-up, and the reporter says that for this particular station, okay, the announcer knows that the end of that actuality has come to an end, and he or she should be prepared to continue the announcing. Again, we are saying that since much of what we hear in the news is mostly serious, even sometimes in depressing information, radio or television newscasts frequently tries to end with a kicker story, and a kicker story is a humorous or human interest story that may put a smile on the listener's face. Okay, so because you are serious right from the start of the newscast, now when you are ending, you must make people at least smile or leave them happy, and then you can now get that story that is full of humor or that is of human interest. And we have an example of such there. So that brings us to our end of lesson today. So see you next time.
These televised lectures supplement our robust online learning going on our MKU online platform. You can view more on our televised lectures via our online platform. We are in a digital era, and Mount Kenya University knows this. The following are the steps to follow so as to complete your online application. Download the application form from the website www.mku.ac.ke. Attach copies of your academic certificates and ID. Pay the application fees via M-Pesa pay bill number 270988. Your ID is the account number. 2,000 shillings is the charge for a postgraduate. You can also deposit in the bank accounts provided on the website. Then email all the above to apply@mku.ac.ke.